you've been living in that area for a little bit. You speak to groups, you talk to folks. Is critical race theory from the grassroots? Is that a grassroots demand in your area? You know the
Um, I'll tell you what, it's one of these things where there's increments. So you have a lot of movement with, especially in media and stuff, with the critical race theory narrative of the African Americans always being victims. And the problem is not that we don't admit that there was a lot of victimhood in different places, but the issue is that you start to make such a stigma to where an African American youth thinks that they are, cursed for life. Okay, that they're always never going to make it. They're never going to get ahead. So go ahead and break the rules. Then you also put the stigma onto the white culture, and essentially, I don't even think these are proper paradigms. But before anything else, I mean, there's so many connections with American people, even genetic relations over generations.
hmm
But essentially, the what happens to the white culture is that they start to get into a mysticism of the ghetto life or the hood life, and so over the generations that's built up. But it is all artificial. It's from the top down. It's from you have a lot of influence in the universities, but you also got a creeping influence and now a dominating influence on the high schools.
So
But
you're not.
essentially, when you see people, yeah, go ahead.
So you're not. You're
I said
not
we,
getting. You're not getting the sense that from the grassroots, parents,
yeah,
black and white, are saying, "Hey, we got to have critical race theory in the public school. That's what we want." You're not
yeah.
getting.
Essentially, when we did like talking, trying to talk to the school board or attempting to talk to the school board, they had a lot of people, and usually they were already associated with the school system. They were part of the teachers unions or teachers and, family of the teachers and all this kind of stuff. So you basically had the system moving in that direction. And a lot of the other people just didn't really want to mind it. You just didn't want anything to do with it. And generally, that's been the crippling thing with what I've seen is I've seen people just kind of, do whatever they want. Teachers have admitted to me that the purpose of public schooling was daycare. It's like, the education, hopefully, maybe, but really, people wanted the school system because they wanted the daycare.
hmm
And so if you really are of that attitude where you just want a daycare, then it just doesn't matter to you. You just want to like go do your thing for a little while and then the kids can come back home and do whatever.
Okay.
And
And
go ahead.
and what are like one or two things that you think, um, one or two things you'd like to see the school board do as far as raising reading and math and science proficiency skills. I cannot imagine what kind of future we're offering our young people when from elementary school through middle school through high school, and there's huge chunks of young people, black and white, who are not at reading level. They're not at
Yeah.
math grade level. They're just not proficient at all in those two critical subjects. What are one or two things you think you'd like to see the Board of Education to do to deal with that?
Well, I tell you what, some of the stuff the Board of Education has kind of shaken away its responsibilities. The Kentucky education through the Senate has basically thrown out these on-site people, which basically, and I don't know why, I just forgot the third word, but anyhow, they'll take two parents and the principal and maybe somebody else like another teacher, and basically the four will decide the curriculum for a school. And I'm thinking, hold on, if this is traditionally the responsibility of the public school, why is it that now, they no longer have any say or an authority or anything like that? So I do want to take on that issue, but from what I know right now, we've seen some changes in reading. They basically did away with phonics. In math, they've come up with an idea called fuzzy math, and with science, as I said, when you deal with issues like evolution or like global warming, what you're really looking at is you have theories, and you want to teach a theory, that's fine, but they're teaching those things as fact when they're not really proven facts.
Right, exactly.
And so what happens then is a form of indoctrination. And while you're doing that, what's going on with technology? If the public school has gotten people hooked on smartphones, calculators, and all those different pieces of technology, why is it that they'll teach them that, but they won't teach them how to fix something? Why can't they be taught about technology and learn how to actually apply it? We need to kind of go into a more tech savvy generation. High school is supposed to be higher learning. High school is supposed to be higher learning. Mm-hmm. So if you graduate from high school, you should be ready for the world. And the college should only be something for extra benefit. And yet now we have people graduating from the public school system who do not have enough science credit to actually go through a college and get a science degree.
Right.
So it's just crazy. But those are some 3 basic things. The philosophy of postmodernism has infected our educational system. And postmodernism teaches that there is no absolute truth. Right. If there's no absolute truth, how do you know that there's certain truth or good truth or any truth? And if there's no truth, then what are you teaching them? Because what you're teaching them is not necessarily true.
Right.
You keep a lot of people at our taxpayer expense.
Folks, this is Book Talk with Corbin. I'm your host. We have with us a good friend of the show, Matt Singleton. He's announced that he will be running for the 5th District seat, Board of Education. He's outlined his 4-point platform. It's very important that people listen to this interview a couple of times, share it with their friends, because my personal opinion, education is one of the most critical issues facing this country, not just Louisville, Kentucky, not just other counties throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky, but all throughout the United States. And I couldn't agree more with a lot of what Brother Singleton has pointed out to us. Folks, let me just say this, sticking in my little 2-3 cents. My big concern is reading, and a lot of minority students are not at reading level. I used to work for a university. I looked at some of the papers. Absolutely horrendous.
Yeah.
These are freshmen in college. Absolutely horrendous. Didn't make any sense. It was ridiculous. Sometimes the professor used a red pen.
Yep.
Marking something wrong. It looked like this professor just took a red pen and he just did a painting on the paper, and that was not unusual. That was common.
Yeah.
And I go ahead.
I worked a part-time job or a temporary job once, and basically we were looking over a lot of the essays. Now this was like senior year of high school. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was horrendous. It was really like 3rd grade reading, as far as I could.
Yeah.
And these were the essays, and it was abysmal. But that was like 10 years ago. So imagine what's going on now.
Well, what I just recounted, that was about 4 or 5 years ago. So it hasn't gotten better. And then my big concern is how people are responding. Like you said, taking out phonics. And then you have these folks who are talking about preferred pronouns. How in the heck is that going to raise the literacy level of our students, preferred pronouns, and this whole big stink about critical race theory? No one is opposed to the teaching of the accomplishments of black folk in the United States of America. No one's opposed to teaching, facts, historical facts. So, and so when you have someone like Dr. Ricky Jones at the University of Louisville saying people who oppose critical race theory are racist, that's a lie. That's a brazen lie. And this is something I hope that you address in your campaign as you talk to people. The teaching again. You already talked about it. There's a difference between education and indoctrination.
Yeah.
Hey, I studied different theories in college, Freud, Marx.
Yeah.
You on down the road. But they were not taught to me as facts. They just said, well, here's the way this person views the world.
Yeah.
What is your thinking? Well, I don't like that. Well, why don't you like it? What's some of your evidence? What are some of your counterpoints? But critical race theory, they want to teach it as fact. And if you oppose it, you're called a racist. And that's a lie. And we need to stop this whole push on the part of people coming into the educational system and wanting to indoctrinate our students. That's not raising math skills, reading skills, it's not doing that. And thank God we have somebody like you, Brother Matt, who's just said, you know what, enough's enough, I got to step up and say something. I got to step up and do something. We really.
And I've just seen this stuff infect people in real life. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, a girl came up to me who had went to school with me, and she told me about how terrible things are going on in the school that we went to, that she had a daughter who was beaten up by 3 boys.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, at least from their perspective, they got away with it. And when you start messing with gender issues, you're really giving a license for abusing women.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you're saying that, this big 6'2" guy is on the same level with a 5'4" girl.
Mm-hmm.
And so if she mouths off, well, then he can go wham, because maybe he's identifying as a girl. He wants to identify a girl. He can go into a girl's restroom and, violate a girl.
Right.
When gay marriage got, the fake law of the land, because it really wasn't constitutional. But when that came to pass, there was immediately a story of a boy going into a girl's restroom and beating the snot out of a little girl. Then there was also, over in Virginia, a boy, acting as a transgendered, went in and raped a girl. Then, when they moved him to another school, he raped another girl.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is a license for crime, because we need to know the difference between a boy and a girl. Right. And, it's just one of those deals where it's absolutely irrational, but that's because the worldview that is being bullied to the students, basically forming a new culture, that worldview is a bully worldview. Right. These people are bullies.
Yes.
And I don't like bullies. As I said, I was bullied in middle school, but then I decided I'd get tough. And so I took martial arts and I took wrestling. And before you know it, the only thing I had trouble with is that I had to correct myself, because I was like, well, just because I can defend myself doesn't mean I need to fall down that route and hurt somebody else.
Right. And brother, you're bringing up good points. What gets me is that when someone like you speaks up on this biological bullying nonsense, you are putting yourself at risk.
Yeah.
Someone may say, "Hey, we got to shut this guy down. We got to ban him. If he's on Facebook, we got to take him off. If he's on YouTube, we got to take him off. If he's on Twitter, we got to take him off. Is he working? You got to get him fired. Things like that. It's like just free speech is just completely and totally thrown out the window, and a lot of times people Americans aren't concerned about it because it's not the government doing it. Okay, and my attitude is there's the culture of free speech in the United States of America. We've always had that. We're going to speak up and speak out against something we think is wrong. And when we saw someone literally have their life threatened